Greetings everyone. Today we continue our series of talks discussing Prabhuji's book, Bhakti Yoga, The Path of Love. At this time we are reading from the preface of the book, and in our last meeting we discussed in few words the nature of what we truly are when it's come from the first sentence that Prabhuji opens his preface with, which is the story of my life is nothing more than the long journey from what I believe myself to be to what I truly am. And then we spoke that this journey reflects the process of evolution and involution, not only of Prabhuji, but of humanity in general. And hence it's so relevant to us. Today we will continue our exploration of the preface. And the beauty of this short text is, I would say, in my humble view and understanding, it's kind of a synopsis of Prabhuji's writings in general. It's written in a very poetic way, and today we will continue to read and contemplate on this text. So Prabhuji continues his preface with following sentence, and this is what we will try to discuss today. Only what begins ends. What starts finishes. Only what begins ends. What starts finishes. And he continues, one who lives in the present is neither born nor dies, because what lacks a beginning never ends. I will read it again, and we will try to dive into this. Only what begins ends. What starts finishes. One who lives in the present is neither born nor dies, because what lacks a beginning never ends. These two short sentences present us with some of our common experience, and at the same time with the millennial mystery that occupied the minds and the hearts of the brightest human beings who walk upon the earth. It's a very profound subject. We can approach it from many different directions, and I feel in a way just this couple of sentences require so much, or carry so much depth, and can be a subject of a separate discussion, speaking about time and immortality and so many other things. So we will touch certain aspect of it today, and like I said, Prabhuji's writings are not one-time reads, so every one of us can go back and inquire deeper and deeper and deeper in pretty much every single sentence of his writings. So when I speak about common experience, like we know that everything, that's our experience, we know that everything begins, ends, and everything that starts finishes. In a way you can say, okay, this is stating the obvious. But isn't it? Speaking about the path of retroprogressive yoga that was nurtured by Prabhuji's lifetime search for truth, Prabhuji explains that this path leads us to become aware of obvious and undeniable reality that most of the time pass unnoticed. This unsettling experience of transient nature of life moves us to react in different way. Some of us try to find security in this transient reality by accumulating wealth, protecting ourselves in many different ways, accumulating possessions, or take a different direction and trying to enjoy, as we say, enjoy life, but in a more superficial sense, enjoy your senses, enjoy everything that life can offer, that we can experience through our senses. When we feel dissatisfied, we might search for something higher. We can become a believer. We will be searching for a higher power that will assure our protection, will become our benedictor, will help us to achieve our goals in this life and promise us a safety and security and a joy of paradise in an afterlife. It is important for me to mention here that all those ways to react to this mystery that we call life are part of human existence, and they are accepted as part of evolution of consciousness. And that's why in Sanatana Dharma we offered 4 different goals of life, which will encompass all of them. Those goals begin from Dharma, which often translated as religion, but this term is much more abstract than that. It's something that holds everything. You can see it as universal law. And it starts from that because Sanatana Dharma tried to show us the way where we can express all our ways to react to life and our propensities as human beings in our conditioned state, but experience all those things within a certain frame and in a way that will guide us to a higher goal. So it's beginning from Dharma, but then we speak about Artha, which is a security. And it's implied in accumulating wealth, possessions, fame, objects, people, so many different things that make us feel secure. It includes Kama as well, which address our propensity to enjoy and seek for happiness. And as in our conditioned state, we search for that with what we got, which is our senses. And the last goal, the most elevated one of them, is moksha, or liberation. So, in some point of our involution, in the beginning of our involution, when we reach a point, and again, it's important to mention it's a universal thing. It's not necessarily, I explain it in the sense of, or in terms of Sanatana Dharma, but this is the process that all of us, as human beings, regardless to where we are in our faith or our lack of it, it's part of our existential experience. So when we exhausted artha, when we exhausted this propensity to search for security, when we realize that there is non-security, and as Prabhuji just mentioned in recent conversation, that we can find ourselves, which is, some of us know this experience, we can find ourselves surrounded by everything and everyone we want and feel completely empty and as insecure as we were when we started. The same with karma. And it's important that it's important to have an understanding, but the true understanding comes from existential experience. We really know something, as Prabhuji mentioned, that we're able to live according to it. So we can understand, and it's very good. That's the part of the purpose, that we think about those things, we inquire into them. But we really understand something when we can existentially experience that. The same way that we know that fire burns when we touch it and come in contact with that. So the same with karma. We will not discuss it much, but throughout our lifetime, as part of our experience, we understand that our senses are limited. That, and not only that, we search for happiness. We search for bliss, but which is absolute happiness that we cannot find throughout the senses. We have a limited amount of time to enjoy and limited capacity to enjoy. So when we really understand that, something new born in us. And that thing is a genuine wonder about life, about ourselves, about world, and about truth. We understand, we know existentially that there is something. We cannot give up this search. We have no idea what we're looking for because we exhausted all those things that we could find within our reach. So we know that those things are not the answer. But we still remain with the question. We still remain with the mystery. In this point of our involution, when we truly and existentially experience those things, we become mumukshuttvas, which is someone who aspires wholly and only for moksha or liberation, or we can put it in different ways, but someone who is ready to inquire into the nature of himself and the nature of the world regardless of circumstances. In a way, I would say it's a state where we become a true scientist. And when the object of our exploration, it's ourself. It's our own existence. And it's very elevated state. Wherever we are on our path, it could be very beneficial for us to seek for inspiration and guidance in testimonies of the rishis and sages of the past. And in relation to this topic, I would like to bring a verse from Bhagavad Gita. It's a verse from the 2nd chapter, verse 14, when Lord Sri Krishna, the embodiment of divinity, speaks to his disciple and friend Arjuna in the midst of two armies in a terrible war where Arjuna presented with impossible task to face and battle a big part of his own family and friends and people who are very dear to him. This battle is unavoidable, but seeing all his relatives in this fighting spirit, Arjuna falls into despair. And this is the guidance that Lord Krishna gives him. And the verse say, Matrasparshastu kaunteya, shitoshna sukha dukkada, agamapayano nityastam stitikshasva bharata. The Lord Krishna say, O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, and their disappearance in due course, are like appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. So this transient experience of life arises from sense perception. This is the way we perceive reality. For most of us, this is the only way we can perceive it. But with all that, this precious guidance can bring our attention to the reality in front of us and give us wisdom and a constructive way to deal with it. So far, we discuss our common experience. And now we go to the second sentence that Prabhuji writes. One who lives in the present is neither born nor dies, because what lacks a beginning never ends. Prabhuji is very precise here, and he says, one who lives in the presence. And this one is very significant. This one you can find in many different scriptures, and we will try to understand to whom or to what Prabhuji refers when he speaks about this one. And we say that this one lives in the present. So the other question we would want to ask, first of all, who is this one? And what is to live in the present? What is present? And he said that one who lives in the present is neither born nor dies, which is very different from our experience. We know that everything in this world manifests and disappears. Every creature in this world is born and flourish and decay and die. This is the reality that we experience. And Prabhuji speak here about the immortality. And why the one who lives in the present is neither born nor dies, because what lacks a beginning never ends. In a verse from Bhagavad Gita that we just discussed, Lord Krishna says to Arjuna that this experience, this transient experience of happiness and distress, arise from our sense perception. In our state, in this conditioned state, this is the only way we know to experience the world. And if we analyze or look deep into the way our mind and our senses function, we will be able to see that our mind is in constant movement, or it is a constant movement from the past into the future, from our memories to our dreams and our aspiration. But we also know that whatever we experienced in life, we experience at certain moment, which we call now. So there are two questions here. One is, what is that now? And the second one, Prabhuji say, the one who lives in that now, the one who lives in that presence. So, who is that one that lives in that present? So the first question, what is the present? What is now? If we accept existence of time, which is a subject that debated for thousands of years, and we still have more questions than answers about the nature of time. But if we try to, for the purpose of our discussion, if we analyze our experience, which imply existence of time, so we can relate to our past, we can reflect on our past, and we can think about our future, and we know that everything we experience in some present. But what is that present? And it's quite a difficult question, because if we accept existence of time, we can in some way measure our past, the past that we know. And we can project it, and in some way to see or to aspire for our future. But the present is the moment where our past become our future. And there is no way that we can measure it. Present doesn't have duration, which means that the present is atemporal, is outside of what we conceive as time. So then there is a question, who can live in that present? Because something is there, something resides in that present, something experience this experience through our eyes, through our ears, something that we call I, something that we call us, and something that, as we discussed before, we cannot define. This unchanging element in us, described in different scriptures, in different traditions, in different way, in Sanatana Dharma, we can call this Jiva or Atma, which will translate in English as soul. In Hebrew tradition, we would refer to it like a part of the divine, Chelek Eloka Mimal, within us, a divinity, something of the divine, which lives within us, and not only lives within us, but that's something that we cannot perceive, that's something live our lives, see through our eyes, hear through our ears, taste, touch. That one lives through us. So in the Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 2, verse 20, Lord Sri Krishna say to Arjuna, Na jayate mriyate vakadachin nayam bhutva bhavita vanabhuya ajo nitya shashvato yam purano nachanyate hanyamane sharire. He said that for that soul there is neither birth nor death. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn. That one that Prabhuji refers, the one who is unborn. Eternal, primeval, ever existent. And that one is not slain when the body is slain. This is very inspiring, but then usually we have a concept, so if we speak about the soul, it means that there are many souls, and in dual traditions and Dvaita Vedanta or in different religious traditions that perceive the divine and the living entity, the living being, or the spark of the divine that live within us, within this body-mind complex, and experience life through that complex, through our minds, through our senses. So in dual tradition we will see that it's a spark or small part of the divinity. Prabhuji shares that one that lives within us is not many. but it's the same reality that manifests as everything and through everything. And through this instrument, through this sense perception, experience itself in infinite ways. And to clarify this idea and conclude this talk, I would like to use a saying of a great sage of Sanatana Dharma, a great proponent of Advaita Vedanta, of non-dual Vedanta, which is, Vedanta is a conclusion, the essence of all Vedic knowledge, Sri Shankaracharya, when he say Brahma Satyam, which means that that Brahman that we discussed before, that infinite reality is ultimate truth, or the only truth. Jagat Mithya. Jagat is the world. So world is not the world, but it's what we experience as the world. It's the way we experience reality. Is Mithya, is illusion. And why it's illusion? Because something, according to Shankaracharya, something, and according to Advaita Vedanta, something that exists in some moment and disappear in the other, and then manifest again and it disappear again, cannot be called real. And then there is a very significant statement. So world is illusion. So the way we perceive reality, this experience of constant change and birth and death and decay and joy and suffering, all this Shankaracharya called this illusion. And then, so what is that soul? And as I mentioned, in a Dvaita tradition and in a dual tradition, that soul will be defined, jiva, as a part and parcel of the divine, as a spark of the divine, a part of the divine. But according to Shankaracharya, jivo brahmeva naparaha, which means that that soul, that Atman, that divine presence, that Chelik Eloka Mimal, that divine presence within us, it's nothing else but that one encompassing reality. And that one is the unchanging, unborn, who lives within us, who experiences himself as the world through us, through our senses. And this is the one who lives through us as what we really are. This is a very big subject, and we might return to it. I hope that this talk gave it some justice and clarify some things, and also leave us a lot to contemplate on. Until the next time. Jai Prabhuji.